Hello everyone. Welcome to my YNR 24 spoilers. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Kane was handed the Riot Act by Jack and Diane. Thank you for joining the young and the restless daily YPP for a brief. You're already halfway through. Recap of the most incredible, or what the hell did we just watch? Moments from today's premiere. Now, let's get started. The Young and the Restless events. On The Young and the Restless, Diane questioned whether Kane had anything more to say than oops. Kane needs to make a return. We commend the man for warning Jack and Diane that Jabot was in danger since his AI software had been stolen by showing up at their house with his hat in his hand. Presumably, if the program descriptions are to be believed, claims claiming that business was going well could be false, and vice versa. Kane was rightfully read the Riot Act by Jack and Diane. Diane recounted how Kane spent millions creating the AI program and then made Genoa City's elites shudder by hinting that the program might be used against them. Oops, it's gone, Diane said as she arrived at our door. Kane described the threat as not being imminent, but Jack angrily ignored it. Is it Jack and Diane's fault that they didn't give the man a seat and coffee? Kane first introduced his unhinged, deadly henchman, Carter, to the business elite from the Young and the Restless by luring them to his castle in France. His potentially life-altering program has now been stolen, leaving many at risk, Diane said, which leaves you with even more blood on your hands, metaphorically speaking. A stark reminder that Kane's "it's not my fault / I didn't mean for this to happen" mentality may be fine, but not when people pass away. Similar to Chance. Damien as well. Carter, too. Do you want further information? We've got you. The greatest comprehensive YNR recaps may be found online at Soap Central. You may even read all of them from more than 30 years ago. We also provide daily spoilers if you are unable to wait for the next episode. The best part is that we want to know whether you agree or disagree. Whatever you do this weekend, please remember to read the 2 scoops for some chuckles in the closest thing we can get to a watching party without actually having a program. Leave a remark below as usual. Kim Zimmer and Robert Newman, the stars of Guiding Light, were hailed by Peter Bergman at the time. Fans of The Young and the Restless probably remember the late, great Phil Donahue's TV chat show, Donahue. Over the years, the adored broadcaster produced a good number of soap opera-themed programs. Donahue had 6 of your favorite celebrities in one of them, and one of them was all praise for a panelist. Peter Bergman, The Young and the Restless. In 1988, Donahue invited 6 soap opera stars to appear on the show for a thought-provoking discussion about soap operas. Among the attendees were Robert Newman and Kim Zimmer Riva from Guiding Light, Vincent Irizarry and Robin Matson from Santa Barbara, and Peter Bergman and Taylor Miller from All My Children. Donahue played snippets of the performers' work and took audience questions. In a scenario involving Josh and Riva, Josh was enraged because Riva had misled him about Cal being Mara's father rather than him. Donahue correctly noted that some people at the time thought soap operas were second class to other forms of performing, and he quickly added, "And it ain't." The presenter frequently promoted the soap opera genre. Folks, here she is. On Guiding Light, Peter Bergman and Robert Newman. A complete list of soap hoppers was included in the panel. That's why you see other people on different shows. Once you've done it, the work is so difficult. You are a wanted commodity. We're doing an hour show in 1 day. Nighttime does an hour show in 6-7 days. To give you an idea of the discipline, Kim taped 6 scenes this morning before the show, and she and Robert are going back to tape 5 or 6 more from here, Bergman said. Back then, recording 1 episode per day was the standard. Currently completes more concerts in order to be profitable. The Phil Donahue Show, also known as Donahue, ran for 29 seasons. It ran from November 6, 1967 to November 13, 1996, with its debut episode. 1. Setting the Scene, The Legacy of Conflict in Genoa City. The young and the restless relies on power battles between generations, moral difficulties, and emotional entanglements. The scene where Jack and Diane confront Cain is a microcosm of all the series stands for: guilt, atonement, and the delusion of control. Each episode builds upon a past that spans decades. Genoa City has always been a place of gleaming corporate skyscrapers and emotional wreckage. The primary metaphor for the corrupting influence of ambition is the corporate competition between Newman Enterprises and Jabot Cosmetics. In light of this, Cain's most recent disaster, the theft of his AI program, seems both current and classic. Even though artificial intelligence is a contemporary storytelling element, the plot revolves around human shortcomings like pride, dishonesty, and moral blindness. Cain shows up without his typical bluster, holding his symbolic hat. He is a man whose choices have cornered him. A faint mixture of desperation and embarrassment is evoked by the thought of him standing in front of Jack and Diane, two people who had survived much more difficult times. This encounter is a reckoning rather than merely a storyline exposition. With the seriousness that Peter Bergman is known for, Jack Abbott represents corporate power that has been tempered by years of treachery. Susan Walter's portrayal of Diane Jenkins, who sees through rhetoric and charm, is a representation of the pragmatic conscience. Diane wonders if Cain had more to say than "oops" is mentioned in the script. It encapsulates her disdain. Oops is a single word that captures everything that is wrong with Cain's strategy: his avoidance, his immaturity, and his incapacity to realize the seriousness of his actions. 2. The fall of Cain from grace. Cain's storyline on the young and the restless has frequently focused on the hazy boundaries between well-meaning intentions and disastrous results. He used to be a stylish opportunist, but now he represents how ambition gone unbridled by humility can lead to disaster. In addition to being a story device, the stolen AI program serves as a mirror reflecting Cain's propensity to gamble with uncontrollable forces. He was more driven by ego than by creativity when he decided to create artificial intelligence for corporate management. For a long time, soap operas have used technology to highlight human failings. Consider misplaced videotapes, erroneous DNA testing, or compromised company systems. AI serves as both a rescuer and a traitor in this contemporary retelling. Cain's program was created to automate executive decision-making and forecast market movements. It was a digital oracle with the power to make or shatter fortunes. However, in typical Y&R form, the theft of the technology makes that possible victory a ticking time bomb. Diane's accusation: "You arrive at our door and say, 'Sorry, it's gone,' sounds more like a mother's admonition than a business partner's. It reveals how little tolerance the elite of Genoa City had for Cain's excuses. The clipped incredulity and cadence of the statement perfectly capture the essence of soap opera dialogue: elevated, moralistic, yet grounded in emotional truth. On the other hand, Jack's rage isn't only professional. His contemptuous response to Cain's cautions betrays a more profound sense of fatigue. Insider betrayals, stolen formulas, and false deaths are just a few of the catastrophes the Abbotts have experienced that make every new controversy seem familiar. But underneath the annoyance is fear. In the event that Cain's program was actually stolen, Jabot's financial base might be compromised in an instant. In an age of digital manipulation, the prospect that false information could spread through AI-driven reporting appears uncannily prescient. 3. Diane's strategic anger. A fascinating example of contradiction is Diane Jenkins. She was once a schemer herself, but because she knows deception from the inside out, she now speaks with moral clarity. In this scenario, her speech veers between sarcasm and morality. She is warning and reprimanding Cain when she says that he has even more blood on your hands, metaphorically speaking. The metaphor enhances the statement rather than weakens it. She is aware that death follows Cain's path, sometimes because of his turmoil more than his intention. Her rage is grounded in tragedy when Chance, Damien, and Carter are mentioned. Every name has significance in the story. Ghosts that haunt Cain's attempts at atonement, victims of his previous affiliations. Diane's encounter is about cumulative reckoning rather than just a lost program. Every accusation in soap operas is a memory machine that replays years of sorrow and betrayal. Diane sees holding Kane responsible as a means of demonstrating that in a society when people are constantly changing who they are, memory is still important. Additionally, her calmness stands in stark contrast to Jack's erratic behavior. As usual, Jack takes the lead emotionally, and his loyalty and outrage frequently impair his judgment. But Diane is like a razor of reason. She breaks down Kane's justifications until there is nothing left but pure remorse. Her rage is cerebral. She undermines his victimization story. Since their reunification, the Abbott-Power couple has been characterized by this dynamic: the analytical woman and the volatile guy. As a result, the scene serves as both Kane's reprimand and a confirmation of Jack and Diane's alliance, which is built on a foundation of love, commerce, and mutual skepticism. 4. Technology as a hubris metaphor. The fundamental paradox of technology advancement is embodied by Kane's AI software. Instruments designed to empower people instead reveal their shortcomings instead. An algorithm that promises reason becomes practically sacrilegious in the realm of Y&R, where emotion dominates decision-making. Kane encouraged calamity by trying to automate success and eliminate human mistake. The theft of his program exemplifies the ultimate irony. He created a new form of corruption while attempting to construct something beyond it. The use of modern technology as a moral allegory in the series has a long history. The Young and the Restless capture society's concerns about power, privacy, and the truth through anything from falsified paternity tests to leaking private footage. That bloodline naturally leads to the AI narrative. Suspected of stealing the code, Phyllis is the epitome of temptation, the inability to refrain from interfering with property that is not hers. Kane and Phyllis are similar in many aspects. They are both intelligent, impetuous, and destructive of themselves. The joy for the audience comes from witnessing two skilled manipulators ruin one another, not merely from wondering if she did it. 5. Jack Abbott's function as gatekeeper and patriarch. Peter Bergman's portrayal of Jack Abbott has often been characterized by moral distress and constraint. It says a lot about leadership fatigue when Jack angrily dismissed Kane's description of the threat as not being imminent. Jack's cynicism stems from fatigue rather than ignorance. Too many crises that began as tiny sparks and turned into infernos have happened to him. His reaction, which is a mix of annoyance and denial, captures the conundrum that faces many crisis managers: knowing when to take action and knowing when to call someone out. Jack's conversation also highlights the gap between generations. Business honesty is still important to him. Kane's technical adventures depict a society in which invention takes precedence over morality. Because he is seeing the dissolution of his world's laws, Jack's rage is therefore partially existential. Jabot's emotional and intellectual core is formed by Diane's strategic thinking, which enhances his moral compass. Notwithstanding their shortcomings, the Abbotts continue to be Genoa City's final stewards of tradition, as evidenced by their united front against Kane. 6. Carter and the Aftereffects of Power, the Ghosts of France. The allusion to Kane's chateau in France and his unbalanced, murderous henchman, Carter, gives the contemporary corporate drama a Gothic feel. The prior plot, which dealt with death, captivity, and manipulation, serves as a warning. A common topic in soap operas is the allure of power, which is shown in Kane's tendency to play with hazardous allies. Kane externalizes his inner turmoil by associating with erratic people, like Carter. Diane is taking away his final line of defense, which was that he was just unlucky, when she tells him that people die as a result of his acts. Especially Chance's death looms large. The performance crossed a moral line with his loss, transforming what may have been a business battle into a reflection on guilt. Diane transforms the scene into a trial by bringing up those names. Kane is a man plagued by collateral harm in addition to being a poor businessman. 7. The performance aspect, direction, and acting. The harmony between emotional realism and dramatic intensity is one of the reasons this scene is so powerful. Peter Bergman and Susan Walters present a masterclass in restrained rage. Bergman allows displeasure to linger behind controlled tones, whereas Walters conveys contempt with pauses and intonation. Cain is portrayed by Billy Flynn as vulnerable. His stooping, protective, and hesitant body language conveys regret more clearly than any words could. The staging visually supports hierarchy. Jack and Diane control the frame, seated but dominant, while Cain stands clumsy and diminished. To highlight the disparity in authority, the camera switches between close-ups of Diane's stern eyes and Cain's quivering eyes. Another element is added by the lighting, which is a visual representation of moral polarity. Cain's tones are warmer but dimmer, while Jack and Diane's are frigid and antiseptic. These subtleties are what soap operas, which are sometimes written off as melodramatic, thrive on. The genre's heightened emotions are a result of its treatment of psychological extremes, such as obsession, loss, and betrayal, rather than its lack of realism. This scene is a classic example of an operatic conflict based on human weakness. 8. Parallel history. Reverberations of former betrayers and abbots. History weighs heavily on every Y&R conflict. The Jack-Cain-Diane triangle is reminiscent of past business betrayals, such as Phyllis's sabotage plans, Ashley Abbott's moral quandaries, and Victor Newman's hostile takeovers. Jack's own past mistakes, addiction, conceit, and mistaken trust are reflected in Cain's decline. Ironically, Jack, who was once the careless prodigal son, is now the moral arbiter. Because he is punishing the man he once was, his anger toward Cain may be a cover for self-loathing. Diane's viewpoint is equally complex. She is intolerant of excuses, since she has been literally and figuratively raised from the dead. She now demands accountability from others after pretending to be dead and regaining her life. The authors deftly hone her power by drawing on her past. In a way, her criticism of Cain is also a confession. She is addressing the version of herself who previously said, "Oops," to disastrous results. 9. Thematic undercurrents. Redemption, responsibility, and the price of technology. This episode primarily grapples with 3 interrelated themes. Responsibility. Cain's apology is not transformative. Rather, it is performative. The contrast between Diane's moral denunciation and his oops highlights how easily privilege may obscure responsibility. In a culture that is fixated on minimizing harm, true accountability takes on dramatic dimensions. A commercial dilemma is turned into an ethical crisis by Diane's comment about having blood on your hands. Salvation. The idea of redemption is what keeps soap operas alive. Even though their characters do horrible things, they are always one confession away from being forgiven. That tension is best exemplified by Cain's struggle. Can a guy who has caused so much hurt be forgiven? The sequence just poses the topic, making viewers consider whether regret can ever triumph over recklessness. It doesn't provide an answer. The price of technology. The typical investigation of power in Y&R is modernized by the AI subplot. Here, technology is not neutral. Rather, it accentuates pre-existing defects. Instead of stabilizing Jabot's activities, Cain's invention undermines moral order. In an era of automation and disinformation, the story's admonition about delegating authority to machines is pertinent. 10. The show within the show, a meta-soap moment. There is an additional degree of self-awareness simply by include the daily YPP recap. The amusing remark from Soap Central, "You're already halfway done," pokes fun at the audience's cooperation. It recognizes that viewers analyze drama in addition to consuming it. This recap frames the scene, turning the story into a conversation between fandom and fiction. Readers are encouraged to laugh while yet acknowledging the seriousness of the event by the light-hearted tone. You show up at our door and say, "Oops." Participatory participation replaces passive viewing thanks to this metastructure. The summary serves as a Greek chorus and gossip column, expressing public opinion and echoing Diane's disdain. It serves as a reminder that morality in soap operas is established by popular agreement rather than by divine edict. Like Jack and Diane, the spectator must determine if Kane is deserving of pity or contempt. 11. Peter Bergman and the Donahue Legacy, connecting the past and present. By placing the actor's skill in context, the text's final section, which recalls Peter Bergman's 1988 Donahue appearance, enhances the reading. Bergman maintained the artistic integrity of daytime drama even before he played the role of Jack Abbott. The discipline underlying the emotional immediacy of soap operas is revealed by his comment that actors put on an hour show in one day. Jack's moral intensity and genuineness are directly correlated with his work ethic. By bringing up Kim Zimmer and Robert Newman from Guiding Light, Y&R is placed in a larger soap opera heritage, a tradition of actors who merge theater and television. When Bergman commended Zimmer's dedication, he was actually expressing a philosophy. Soap opera acting, despite its often disdain, requires endurance, emotional nimbleness, and a unique level of audience connection. Every dramatic sequence, such as Jack and Diane facing Kane, is the result of decades of professional rigor, as the Donahue footage reminds us. 12. The development of production for soap operas. Bergman's remark that shows once taped an hour in one day, while prime time required 6 or 7, illustrates the industrial creativity of soaps. Actors must live authentically under constant time restrictions, which forces instinctual performance. These days, the pressure increases as production economies force television programs to shoot several episodes per day. Thus, the Kane-Jack-Diane conflict symbolizes both narrative intensity and logistical skill. Storytelling is also influenced by this industrial setting. Insufficient practice time frequently results in unrefined emotion and mistakes that seem genuine. This tension is reflected in Flynn's hesitations, Bergman's lightning-fast responses, and Walter's improvisational energy. The method necessitates immediacy, which is precisely why spectators experience realism. 13. Soap operas as reflectors of culture. Class differences, gender politics, and changing ideas of success have all been reflected on the young and the restless. The AI plot modernizes that custom for the digital era. Data theft, algorithmic trickery, and corporate espionage are more than just catchphrases. They represent the breakdown of trust. Diane is expressing a reality of the 21st century when she accuses Kane of metaphorical bloodshed. Harm can now be systemic, unseen, and networked. Furthermore, the show's handling of power relations mirrors current discussions regarding responsibility in business and technology. Kane's carelessness is comparable to scandals in the real world, where executives lose command of the systems they created. Therefore, Jack and Diane's indignation goes beyond soap opera melodrama to serve as a cultural critique of our own involvement in technological arrogance. 14. Power reversal and gender dynamics. Gender preconceptions that have been ingrained in soap opera history are also subverted by the Jack, Diane, and Kane triangle. Traditionally, women manipulate from the periphery, while male CEOs hold the reins of power. Diane has moral and intellectual power in this situation. Her criticism of Kane is forensic in nature rather than manipulative or sentimental. She turns reason into punishment by using language as a weapon. This is a subtle feminist shift in Y&R, as women are now characterized by strategic cleverness rather than romance or retaliation. Meanwhile, Jack's job has become more lenient. Though intense, his rage is not controlling. He hears, responds, and questions. Jack and Diane's relationship serves as an example of contemporary equality, since they are two imperfect people who balance each other's extremes. Their unified front against Kane serves as another evidence that sustainable power is built on shared accountability. 15. Emotional architecture and story rhythm. The scene's rhythm, viewed from a structural perspective, adheres to the traditional 3-act tension: exposition, confrontation, and aftermath. Every action increases the emotional strain. The conversation has a tempo evocative of courtroom drama as it switches between accusation and deflection. Layering is what makes YNR writing so brilliant. Each line functions on a number of levels, including symbolic, emotional, and literal. Diane's sardonic oops is an example of inversion rather than repetition. She transforms Cain's word into a weapon and a symbol of carelessness. The creativity of the genre is also reflected in the timing, which includes pauses when words fail and glances where history speaks. The audience reads a great deal in silence because they are familiar with subtext. 16. The function of continuity and memory in soap opera worlds. Soap operas depend on continuity as their emotional currency, in contrast to episodic television. Like archaeologists uncovering ancient wounds, authors build upon the betrayals that viewers recall from decades before. The reason the encounter between Jack, Diane, and Cain is powerful is that it brings to life long-forgotten stories like Chance's death, The Ghost of France, and The Legacy of Betrayal. This consistency turns observing into involvement. Fans do more than just watch. They remember, criticize, and forgive. The audience remembers the images, the funerals, and the aftermath when Diane mentions previous deaths. The effect is increased by this intertextual understanding, which is the result of years of hard work. Loyalty is handsomely rewarded in few genres. 17. Genoa City's moral economy. In The Young and the Restless, all of the characters work within an unwritten moral economy where debts of loyalty, treachery, and atonement are continuously traded. Cain's gap has been too great. Thus, Jack and Diane's rage serves as ethical accounting. A world on the verge of anarchy is brought back into equilibrium by their battle. However, the show defies moral absolutism by allowing viewers to feel sorry for Cain even as they criticize him. The brilliance of soap opera narratives is their refusal to provide resolution. Every decision creates more uncertainty. 18. Phil Donahue's legacy and media analysis. The script's reference to Donahue is a loving homage to a time when soap operas dominated popular culture throughout the day. More than ever, Phil Donahue's justification of the genre, that it wasn't second class, resonates. It is difficult to distinguish between high and low art in the era of serialized streaming dramas. YNR's tenacity over the years demonstrates its narrative adaptability. The composition honors the tradition of persistence by calling upon Donahue. Furthermore, the story about Kim Zimmer filming 6 sequences prior to her appearance on the show highlights the underappreciated work of the genre. It serves as a meta-reminder that an army of artisans, including writers, editors, lighting technicians, and costume designers, support everyday storytelling behind every conflict, like Jack and Diane's. Unrelenting discipline off-screen is hidden by the glitz on-screen.